Hello everyone and welcome to Chess 5. And today I'm going to show you the game between Michal Krasenkow versus Kiriil Alekseenko. And the game is from the FIDE World Cup 2021 and the game is going to be very interesting because both the players are grandmasters, so obviously the game is going to be very interesting. So till then, stay tuned and keep watching Chess 5. So Michal Krasenkow is white and Kiriil Alekseenko is black. So let's start. So Michal with the white pieces started with one knight f3. So he wants to play in ready opening, but Alekseenko replied with d4, solid d5 move. Here we have d4, knight to f6. If your white plays bishop to f4, then we are in the London system. But we have c4 by white. So we are going to see queen's gambit. We have e6 by black, g3. So now we are in the queen's gambit Catalan variation. Bishop to b4 check, bishop to d2, bishop goes back to e7. So no trading of bishops. Here we have bishop to g2 by white, castle by black, castle by white. Here we have knight to d7 by black, so both the sides are simply developing the pieces. After queen c2, developing the queen and also protecting the pawn on c4. Here we have c6, so black is keeping the pawn structure very solid. Here we have rook c1 by white, a5, so black definitely trying to grab space on the queen side. So white stops by playing a4. Now queen side is very blocked. Now we have rook to e8 by black, developing the rook, knight to a3, bishop to d6, and now comes bishop to f4 by white. A very nice move by Michal. The idea of playing bishop f4 in this position here is, if black tries to trade off the bishop by playing bishop into f4, now white is going to play g into f4. Now the e5 square is very nice for the knight on f3, and black can no longer open up the position with e5 because the d pawn as well as the f pawn is covering up the e5 square. So that's why bishop to f4 was a pretty nice move by Michal. After bishop f4, now Kiriil Alekseenko decided to open up the position by playing e5 in the position. So we are going to see some serious exchanges of pieces. Here we have d into e5, knight into e5, bishop into e5, bishop into e5. Now we have c into d5, knight into d5, knight into e5, rook into e5, knight to c4, developing the knight and also hitting the rook on e5. So now we have rook to e2, rook to e8 back, rook to d1 by white. So first of all, white is putting the rook on a very nice square, and the threat of white is to play e4 in the future, attacking the knight. The knight cannot move because the queen is hanging on d8. So pretty nice move by black, because now comes bishop to e6 by black. So basically, black is allowing white to play e4. So we have e4 in the game, but now we have knight to b5 by black, knight to b4 by black. So black is saying, okay, you can grab my queen on d8, I'm going to grab your queen on c2. So how's the deal? So after playing knight b4, white played queen to c3. So there would be no queen trade. We have queen to c7 by black, knight to d6, centralizing the knight and also hitting the rook on e8. So now we have simply rook to e7 by black. So perhaps the idea of black is to play rook to d8 in the next move, hitting the knight on d6 with the queen as well as the rook. So after rook to e7, we have e5 by white. So now the knight will no longer move because the e5 pawn is simply protecting the knight on d6, and the knight on d6 is the best square for the knight. So after e5, we have queen to b6 by black, rook to d2. So the idea of fight is to double up the rook on d5. So we have knight to d5 by black. So here white is having option. He can capture up the knight with the bishop, or he can move the queen. So in the game we have queen to c2 by white, rook to d7, rook to d1, we have rook to d8, and after rook to d8 we can see, so both the sides have completely developed their pieces, and now we are going to see a very interesting game. So after rook d8, we have rook to d4 by white. The idea of white is very clear. The idea of playing rook to d4 in this position here is white wants to swing up the rook to the h4 square and hit the pawn on h7 and create some pressure on the black king. So rook to d4 was very nice move by white. After rook d4, we have knight to b4 by black, hitting the queen on c2 and also putting the knight on a very nice square. So after knight b4, we have queen to c1 by white, h6 by black, so that there would be no back rank mate ideas in the future, because now the king is having a permanent square for the king to go on h7. So after h6, we have rook to h4 by white, and black simply played f6 in this position, which looks a very common move. Here white cannot grab the pawn basically on f6 because the knight on d6 is hanging. But now comes a very powerful move by white and a very surprising move by white. Can you try to find it? So if you are a Michal Tal player, or if you like the style of Michal Tal play, then I think you definitely would have found rook into h6 in this position. I think many of you would also have found e into f6, but the correct move in this position is to play rook into h6, which was played by Michael, and this is the move which make the game interesting. Because after rook into h6, black is not having much to do. He have to capture up the rook. So we have g into h6. But now we have queen into h6, and it looks like blacking is terribly weak, but black is having counterplay. So after playing queen into h6, we have queen to c7 by black. So black idea is very simple. So black wants to put the rook on h7 and wants to put the queen on g7, and the black king would be super safe. So after queen c7, we have queen into f6. So black just gave up the pawn on f6 to bring the queen, and so that the king would have some safety. So after queen into f6, now the white is threatening to capture up the bishop on e6 with a check. So black played bishop to b3. So now the bishop is attacking the rook on d1. So we have bishop to h3 by white, a very nice move. So here white is simply telling black, okay, you can grab my rook on d1. If you try to grab my rook on d1, now it's mate in 5. Can you spot it? If you found now bishop to e6 check, congratulations, because here comes, first of all, black is having forced move to play king to h7, or else rook to f7 is also a move. If he plays king to h7, then after king h7, now we have a very nice move, which is knight to f5, and the threat of white is very simple. White wants to play queen h6, and it's a checkmate. So the best move for black is to play rook to f7 in this position. But now comes queen h6 check, king g8. Now comes a very nice move. Can you spot it? Yes, queen g7 is a simple checkmate. The rook cannot capture the queen because the rook is pinned. The knight is protecting the queen, and it's a beautiful checkmate. So that's why after bishop h3, black cannot capture up the rook on d1. So that's why after bishop h3, we have rook to f8 by black, hitting the queen on f6. Now we have bishop to e6 check by white, a very nice move. So black played bishop into e6, queen into e6, traded off the bishop. Now we have king to h8 by black, and now white simply played queen h6 check, king g8, rook to d4 by white, a very nice move. The idea of rook d4 is very simple. Actually, rook g4 is rook g4 is not the idea, because the rook will simply enter. The idea of white is to play rook to h4 and threaten checkmate on h8. So it's a very nice move by white, bringing up the rook. So after rook to d4, we have knight to d5, and this was the blunder by black, by Alekseenko Kiriil. The right move in this position could have been to simply play rook g7, or even rook h7 is also a fine move by black. It keeps the position equal. But the move which Alekseenko Kiriil played was a blunder, because now comes the only winning move for white. So can you try to find the best move for white in this position? Okay, so to all those who have found queen e6, congratulations, this is the right move. This is the only right move. Because after queen to e6 check, black will play king h8. This was played in the game, and can you now try to find the best move for white in this position? I'll give you a couple of seconds. So okay, so all of those who have found rook to h4 in this position, sorry, but this is not the right move. The right move in this position is to play knight to knight to e8 in this position, and this is the only move. Okay, you can play queen h6 and give a check and come back with by playing queen e6 check, but eventually you have to play knight to e8, to get a winning position. If you try to play rook to h4 check, this is not going to work. But now black is the one who is better in this position, because now comes a very nice move by black and a fourth move, rook to h7. And after rook h7, blacking is completely safe. That's why after king h8, the right move for white is to play knight to e8. If you found it, congratulations. Knight to e8 is definitely very hard to find, because in a game you will always feel something like rook g4, rook h4 should be the answer, but knight e8 was the answer. Let's check it out why knight e8 was the best move. So after knight e8, we have queen to d8, because the knight was hitting the queen on c7. So after queen d8, we have queen to h6 check. We have king g8. Now we have rook to g4 check, king to f7. Now can you try to find mate in 5 idea? Feel free to pause the video and try to find the mate in 5 idea for white. Okay, so all those who have found knight d6 check, congratulations. This is the only move which leads to a mate in 5 checkmate. So after knight d6, after move number 41, Alekseenko Kiriil resigned the game and Michal won the game. So after knight d6, here black is not having many options. He can grab the knight, or he can play king to e7. Grabbing the knight makes the most sense, but after capturing up the knight, we have rook g7 check after king e8, which is the fourth move. Now comes a very nice move by white. Queen to h5 check, a very fantastic move. Here, first of all, the king is having no space. Everything is covered by black pieces and the white pieces. So the rook is forced to come on g6 to stop the checkmate. After rook g6, we have queen into g6 check, and now the rook is forced to come on f7. After rook f7, we have queen into f7, and it's a checkmate. So this was the reason. After knight to d6, after move number 41, Alekseenko Kiriil with the black pieces resigned the game, and Michal with the white pieces won the game. So fantastic game played by both the players, but Michal played a very nice game, sacrificing the rook and many more stuff. So if you like this game, then you can like to the video. If you are new to my channel, then you can subscribe to my channel. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you for watching, and bye bye.